back to my channel, and what an interesting month June has been. It is almost over and it is July, and I can't wait to get this month started because June was a crazy month. Some good things and some bad things. I just got back from New York City working my trip as a work trip, and I met up with some friends in Manhattan. And can y'all see me? Am I too dark? Let me see. Just a little bit here. Hey Barack. Hey Michelle. Hold on. Okay, that's better. And met up with some friends in Manhattan, and one was a white guy and one was a guy from Ecuador, a Latino guy. And of course we were talking about everything that's going on in the world, the virus, and talking about LGBT rights. And one of the major topics that came up was the Black Lives Matter, and my white friend had a question which I thought about it all night when he asked that question. He said that he was trying to explain something that regarded black people or African American people, and he was like, well, what do you guys want to be called now? Is it now derogatory to say African American because all I'm hearing is black or black lives or black, and I thought that was derogatory, and that's why you change your names to African American. I was like, yeah, when did that start? When did we change? And he asked, what do I call myself? I'm like, well, I never call myself. I'm an American. That's my goal always, to be an American. So that was a good question. So I thought I'd ask you guys, shout out to my black people. This is for you right now. What is the official name for people of color like me? And is there an official name, or who makes up our name? Does white people name us and we take it along? If you're a black person explaining what a black person is, are you saying he's black? Are you saying he's African American? I want to know. I've always said, growing up, I was black. One point in my life I was saying I'm not even black or African American, I'm just an American, not knowing what that really meant. An interesting story about myself is I have two younger brothers. One is 14 years younger and the other one is 7 years younger. I was born in the 60s. My middle brother was born in the 70s, and the baby brother was born in the 80s. And if you look at our birth certificate, we have the same parents, and you can see where we were called different things. I was born as a Negro. Now that's really derogatory. My middle brother was a black American, and my youngest brother is an African American, so go figure that. But I think as I was thinking about it, I think it went from African American to black only recently, maybe in the past 5 or 6 years, when the Trayvon Martin situation had happened, and then we had the birth of the hashtag Black Lives Matter. So in the news media, we kept hearing black lives, black, 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 black. So I just think we kind of transitioned without knowing we transitioned to black people, blacks. But he was right. At one point, we thought that was derogatory because everything that was black was associated with negativity or bad, like Black Monday, Black Friday, Blackout, black sheep of the family. We're not a color. I'm an American. You don't hear people white of European origin say, if their family's from Germany, that I'm German American or I'm French American. They just say I'm an American or I'm European or something like that. And again, when you think of continents, when you say African American, Africa is a continent. What part? And it's very difficult for blacks to trace their roots because we were deemed as not human. We were cargo back in the 16th, 17th century when we were brought over here without permission, basically. And then one of the things that stood out was Al Sharpton at the George Floyd funeral, when he said that what bothers him every time he writes his name down to sign a deed or a mortgage or a home loan or a car or anything like that, he's always signing his last name that was given to him by a slave owner, passed down. So their surname, their family name was given to him by a slave owner. So every time he writes it, it reminds him that he was a slave. And a lot of us have that. We're all Jones, Smiths, and Johnsons. Those were our slave masters. And we took the names on, and of course, the name was given by our parents, our first name. And most of those names were based on Christianity. You know, when the Africans came over, they took all their culture, their religion, and said that they have to be a part of their culture and their richness of this great country. So it was a fascinating conversation, but it was a conversation that needed to talk about. I think if a lot of people, instead of sweeping racism under the rug, and you have a decent, professional conversation, I think we can eradicate racism just by talking. Right now what we're doing is covering it with a Band-Aid. The wound is still there, but we've never cleaned it out. And I think that's what Black people want to be acknowledged, that there was wrongdoing when we came over here, and how we're going to fix that and how we're going to catch up. You always hear that term, reparations, that Black people should get paid their due diligence for being enslaved and all that. And I think I said in one of my videos, I agree with that all the way up to the point of how they distribute out the money. Like, I think the government owes people of color a lot of money. We don't know what it is, but they should determine it. And then rather giving it as a social way of each person gets a certain amount, because how do you even determine that when, what kind of Black are you? What if you're mixed race? What if you are from Caribbean? You know, all these things. Whereas take that money and give it to organizations to support Black people, you know, to bring them up to the level and fairing, same playing field as white people. Putting money into organizations that will promote goodness, job training, job creation, education, scholarships in some of these schools. I don't know if anyone knows, but in California, the university system, there's only 1% of African Americans in the Ivy League or private schools. It's affordability, accessibility, 1% people. And I know we're 14% of this nation, but 1%. And education is the key. We all know that the higher your education, the better jobs, and the better, less ignorant that you can be. Going to college is not just for getting a job, but just being educated, not ignorant. And I think we see a lot of ignorance going on around this country. A lot. I didn't know how much ignorance was still in this country, because when you live on the coast, I live on the West Coast, how you doing? And you just do bi-coastal things, and you don't really explore middle America, they're still about a couple of decades behind when it comes to social issues like LGBT rights, racism, all the buttons. I'm thinking the whole world is like what I'm like, being in San Francisco. I'm being in urban areas, but small town America still has a long ways to go. And with the technologies today, they're being exposed. It's just like racism and all that didn't go away. It's just being captured now through videos that we all have in our pockets. More and more people are telling our story through film and getting more stories in books. A lot of us don't even know, including Black people, our own history. And I think that's important, because that's how you not repeat bad history, and they also grow good history. Because not all of our history is bad things. Black people did prosperous before slavery. In Africa, we were king and queens, and we still own that. I still think I'm a king. I don't understand why people hate me because of the color of my skin. I will never, ever realize why they do that. I don't think anybody knows, because racism exists around the world, but it's more class, status, how much money you make, where you're from, who's in your family. But I always feel like in America, it's just based on melanin. And then they want to get darker and have our lips and butts and all that and be like us, and love when we have our talented part of us showcasing it. But we're also smart up here. We just need that chance to use that brain. But yeah, I just wanted to pop on and tell you about my weekend in New York City. It was kind of scary. New York was still a little empty, like in Times Square. I'd never seen it so empty before, but there were also hot spots where like Hell's Kitchen was just hordes of people. In New York now, you can have a sit-down dinner. The bars were open, but you have to drink outside. For a moment, I didn't think there was a COVID-19 going around, that everything's back to normal. That's how it felt like in New York. But we're still right in the middle of this, and it's now resurfacing. I don't think we ever left, but something's going on, and I think our leadership is in denial. I think some people are in denial, and I think a lot of it's just people are just fed up. I've always predicted that by the 4th of July, people's like, Corona, Simona, I'm going out, I'm gonna eat my barbecue, and I'm gonna do my thing. I'm gonna celebrate this nation's independence, which was kind of cool because a lot of people just realized about Juneteenth was African American slavery independence. June 19th, 1865 was the official date that blacks were freed. 400 and something years ago. That's a lot. But I even think about current things. It was just only 65 years ago, maybe even 60, that African Americans couldn't vote. Let that sink in. It has only been 60 years since African Americans can vote. It was only 50 years ago where I couldn't even sit in the front of the bus. It was just, I think 40 years ago that biracials couldn't get married. It was just last month when a man was killed by a police officer with a knee in his neck for 8 minutes and 49 seconds. Do we have a long ways to go? Yes. Have we come a long ways? Yes. But I'm hopeful. Anyway, hopefully you've come this far and heard what I had to say. I get it all out. And thank you for watching. It's really important that if you guys like what you see, you like this video. And subscribe, because you never know when I'll pop up and throw a video. But I try to have a video every Wednesday and Saturday. And then in between that time, if I got something to say, I will put on the camera and let you guys know. So thanks for watching. Bye, girl. Bye.